let's get into a little Hunt's hot seat here.
All right.
This week on the hot seat is old Kirk Ferentz. Chris, what do you think about that?
I tell you what, it's kind of funny here being in Nebraska, and I got one of my best friends is a huge Hawkeyes fan, right? And I had to rub it in last year with Nebraska beating them, knocking them out of the Big Ten title game. That was actually our bowl game. I know I'm a Nebraska fan. I apologize. It's been rough. But Kirk Ferentz entering his, 25th year, Christian? This fucking guy's been here forever, man. I mean, he's been there back when I was in college, which I know was a lifetime ago, right, Christian? Big thing is, though, unless they shit the bed to me, dude, I mean, we all know how bad Iowa's offense was last year. It's been very well documented, and I watched plenty of Iowa games in my lifetime. Last year's was, I don't even know if there's a word for it, how bad Petrus was last year. I mean, it was terrible. We could have brought you out of retirement, Christian, and you would have been more successful, and that says a lot. Here's my other thing. Ferentz is 186 and 115 in lifetime at Iowa. He's way up there. The guy's been coaching for a long time. I think he's a good coach. I do. He's done a lot for the program. You think Iowa football in my lifetime, I'm 38, you think Kirk Ferentz. That's pretty much what you think. I don't see them having a bad year this year overall. I really don't. I think they probably go 8-4, 7-5 at worst. If they have like a 5-7 season, Christian, to me, that might be it. I could also see him being kind of forced out of there if something like that happens instead of a firing. He's got his son around. I know the whole deal here. I think it would take a lot for Iowa to suck that bad because their defense is always really, really, really good. They play a lot of sound football most of the time, but they got Cade McNamara coming in for over Michigan. He is going to be an upgrade no matter how he plays over Petrus last year. I mean, that was one of their biggest problems, dude. It was so they couldn't convert a 3rd and 3, dude. I mean, or 3rd and 1. It was just weird last year. Anything where they had to throw the ball, it was horrible. I mean, they even played Ohio State super tough last year, and Ohio State was leaps and bounds better than they were. Defense kept them in that game. So I'm not worried about Kirk Ferentz overall. Christian, I want to hear your thoughts here. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think it's a lukewarm take here on this, right? I mean, this is something we kind of put together ourselves, but I think it's, people in Iowa, they love Kirk Ferentz.
Oh, yeah.
But they also want to win on the national stage really, really bad. And I just think you can't keep being an 8, 9, 10 win coach every single season and expect to be around forever. Understandably, he's had a couple of really good seasons. He's had a couple of 11-win seasons. He's had, I think, a year where he won 12 games. I mean, they've been really close at times, but a couple of years ago, hell, they were competing for a Big Ten championship, if I'm not mistaken. So it's one of those tough things, I feel like, if you're an Iowa fan, where it's like, it's been kind of up and down, up and down. Always good enough to be a bride. Bridesmaid, never good enough to be a bride, man.
I got a question for you. Do you think part of the problem with Kirk Ferentz, is that he's from that old school brand where he maybe hasn't caught up with the game? You know what I mean? He's been coaching for 25 years just as a head coach at Iowa. He's been around the game for fucking ever. Do you think that's maybe part of the problem? Because they don't adopt it is the Big Ten. You got to be able to run the ball in Big Ten. Anybody that watches football knows that. But do you think it's because they are very, very simple? And I know simple works in football, but today's era where you got to be able to do a little play action, you got to be able to do, some teams run out of the spread. Ohio State's really good at it. Even Nebraska shows that once in a while. You look at Michigan, even they do it. They'll run with the quarterback. You know what I mean? Do you think that's maybe part of the problem that he doesn't want? A lot of those guys are stubborn, right? They've been doing it for so long. It's my way or the highway type of thing. Do you think maybe that's part of the problem?
I think so too, but I mean, you look at any line of work, especially in college football, whether you're Georgia, whether you're Alabama, Nick Saban's probably the greatest example of this. He kind of ran this style of football for the longest time where he was going to beat you up on defense. They were going to kind of pound the ball down your throat for 3 quarters and then start trying to, absolutely tear you up, with a tight end and the passing game and the play action game and do everything like that. And that's fine. Nick Saban can absolutely do that. He has 4- and 5-star guys that were drafted in the NFL long before this new age of football was there, right? He goes all the way back to Julio Jones, right? And some of those guys.
Oh, God, yeah.
The problem is, and this is the problem, Saban realized at a certain point, hey, we've got, and you touched on it a couple of podcasts ago.
Yes, I did.
In that LSU game, you've got to be able to adapt. You cannot keep going in these games where you just try to play, not only say scared, but you try to play clock management and you try to win by a field goal. You have to be able to spread the ball around and not be afraid to kind of move it and get away a little bit from running the ball. Now, they still run the ball, but they're not afraid to pass it. And I think that a big part of it too, Chris, is, he's put himself in a really tough situation, Kirk Ferentz he has, because his son is his offensive coordinator.
Right.
So if they don't do well this year and the offense doesn't improve drastically, and they're one of the worst offenses again, or in the bottom third of offense again this year, even with McNamara coming in, I would almost make the argument that he's going to be put in a situation where, the administration is going to come to him and say, hey, you have to fire somebody on that offensive side of the ball.
Right.
Which I don't think he's going to do. I don't think there's any way Kirk Ferentz will ever fire his son.
See, and I'm going to touch on this real quickly. I don't like father-son things. I just don't. And this is kind of a reason why. And I'm not saying that Kirk Ferentz is a bad coach, and I'm not saying his son is. It's more, you know what I mean? When it doesn't work, it doesn't seem to work. You know what I mean? It's the first thing people want to point to, especially Iowa, because Iowa is one of these programs, man. And trust me, they're, I guess, our rivals, since we moved over to the Big Ten with the Nebraska fan here. But it's like, they're a damn good football team. I'm not going to sit here and knock them for that. And they do play an old school style of football. But you got to be able to adapt, and that's kind of why I was asking that question, Christian, because you see what Saban did, who I don't like Nick Saban, but what he did to me, had all those average to below average quarterbacks pound the ball with Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. He realized, holy shit, college football's evolving into the spread. I got to build. Then all of a sudden, he's got Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa on his fucking team, and all these 4-star, 5-star receivers that all play in the NFL now, right? I give him a lot of credit for doing that, because Nick Saban is a control freak. He is a guy that does it by the book, in his way or the only way, right, type of thing. I'm wondering if Kirk, not saying he's got to go that drastic, but it's like, look, man, like you said, he has put himself in a tight spot here with his son being the offensive coordinator. They got to get it going this year on offense. They do. I watched a lot of Iowa last year, especially the last couple of years. It's like, it's got to get it done. And I actually have Iowa, I think, going 8-4 in my predictions. I think he's fine there. And Iowa could definitely do better in that, too. They got a lot of pieces. Iowa's known for offensive linemen and great tight ends and pounding the football. Their defense is always fucking elite. It is. Their defense is, especially in the Big Ten, man, it's tough to beat Iowa. They win a lot of ugly games. The only problem is when they get down by 10 or 14, though, what do you do, right? That's the problem. Now you got to throw the ball.
Yeah, then you got to get those linemen to block, that pass protection.
Yep.
And there's so much about it, I feel like, where it's, they have, that's the weird part of it. They have good offensive linemen that have come out, like Tristan Wirfs, the first one that comes to my mind.
Yep.
For the Bucs, and it's like, you have linemen that can pass protect really well, that go into the next level. But I think right now where they're at, they're more of a kind of run the ball down your throat, kind of like how Nebraska was last year. Their pass protection over the last couple of years wasn't all that great.
That was horrible.
So you have to figure out a way to kind of, get all of this stuff to mesh up and be able to get a quarterback that can do the little things right. That's such a big thing. I look at this and I think a lot of people think he's untouchable.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, a lot of people look at him like he's untouchable, but I think that a good chunk of people, right, they want a bit more out of this program, right? So they want a bit more. They want a taste of that college football playoff. They want that. They know it's right around the corner. Hell, we can win 8, 9, 10 games a year. Why can we not get over the hump and beat the Michigans or the Ohio States and cement ourselves into the playoff?
So, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. No. Finish up.
I was just going to say, I think that, I'm looking at Ferentz right now, like I looked at Mark Rich, towards the end of his tenure with the Bulldogs, right? He's always good enough to get you to he's always good enough to get you to the doorstep of the dance, but he can't ever get you in. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's going to cost him, right? I mean, it took UGA hiring Kirby Smart and getting a lot more aggressive on the recruiting trail while also having that dog mentality. You go back and you look at Mark Richt interviews versus Kirby Smart interviews, you can just tell Kirby's got a little bit of nastiness to him. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You can go look at Kirby's practices, right? Kirby's not afraid to get in your ass. I mean, he does not care. But you got to have that dog mentality to get them over the mountain. And I think Iowa, it might just have to do that same thing in order for them to kind of be, running the Big Ten again.
No, I'm with you. So my question, to end this real quick. What's it take for him to get fired this year and or let out the door? What type of record? Bowl game, like a 6-6? Is that enough or no bowl game?
I would say a 6-6 season would probably be cause for concern.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, if he can make it to a bowl game, I think that they would be the talks about his hot seat would start heating up a lot more. I think that a 5-win season, you fail to make a bowl game, I think that administration would have to step in and say, hey, especially it depends on how they get there, right? If the defense shits the bed and the offense looks really good,
right,
that's a little different. But if the offense continues to struggle and they can't sort of formulate an identity this year like they were last year, I would have to think that the administration comes in and says, hey, we need you to get rid of your son. Yeah, we need you to get rid of your son and try to get this thing going. And if he's not willing to do that, I think they would say, okay, well, we're going to have to ask him to step down.
Right. No, I agree. Okay, that was my question to wrap that up on the old Iowa Hawkeyes.